Very good. Well, it's nice to be here with you all today. I know that it's about 2:30 here in the afternoon. I'm sure it's getting late for some of you. But this is going to be an important discussion, important topic with regards to building out a digital forensic toolkit. And there's there's a lot to talk about here in terms of what's out there, what we encounter as practitioners, as investigators, and I hope to shed some good light on the topic for you and just explain sometimes when you encounter evidence, you have a certain path that you intend to take, and sometimes you need to pivot. So I'll do a quick introduction from my perspective in terms of my background, and then speak a little bit about the evolution of data sources, the subsequent evolution of digital forensic tools that are now available, how we go about compiling a toolkit, and then the importance of validation, because without validation, you're not really checking all the boxes that this tool is what it says it is, and what it can do is based on your own kind of testing and things like that. So we'll talk about that important critical step in all this, and then we'll take some questions from the audience. So a little bit about me. I have been in the space for now over 23 years. It's going to be my 24th year. And I've been in the area of digital forensics and e-discovery, have now entered into private investigations in the last number of years, and have been able to not only perform extensive data collections across the globe for multinational organizations, law firms, things like that, but I also do that on behalf of clients that want to have
I realized
investigations
the
done as well.
Lord had given me a sign.
Uh,
The
Currently,
shield
I'm
of
the
the
EVP of Forensics and the Chief Investigative Officer at Page One. Page One is an e-discovery service provider with 20 years in the industry, based out of Nashville, Tennessee. Currently, we're expanding our office presence in New York, and forensic lab as well, and forensic services. I'm happy to be part of the team structuring out that part of the organization and offering, defensible not only collections but investigations, things like that on behalf of our clients. My background is master's and bachelor's in forensic science from the University of New Haven a number of years ago now. I also maintain numerous forensic certifications involving both forensic tools and processes and procedures. I'm a licensed private investigator in New York, Michigan, South Carolina, some other states to follow here shortly, and the author of now 5 books on digital forensics in the series titled Forensic Data Collection 2.0, which is available on Amazon and other online retailers. So, to kick off the conversation, uh, it's very important to discuss the evolution of data sources. uh, in the amount of years that I've been doing this work, I've seen the evolution occur pretty significantly, where everything was within our 4 walls, within office space, within, close proximity, and, within reach of investigators also understanding what the potential data sources that were going to be relevant include. Since my starting, and obviously, that's a number of years ago now, the number of data sources has grown exponentially, where we're not just talking about computers, email, network data, things like that. We're now talking about wearables and mobile devices and IoT and Bitcoin, you name it, it's all kind of things that we have to address and assist with. So the number of devices has increased as well as the volume of data. And as you can imagine, the manual way of doing things is still very applicable in terms of the process and whatnot, but not very efficient in terms of the scaling that may be needed when you're dealing with multiple types of uh, data, as well as now the volume of data being in the terabytes, for just a standalone device is a lot to sift through. So we're heavily reliant on a lot of our tools, a lot of the methodologies to help streamline these types of processes for us. And the investigations are not slowing down, right? Nobody's saying to us that you have a month to do this. Everybody wants answers pretty quickly, and so you have to be pretty efficient in what you're able to do. Not to mention, we're also seeing the challenge of cloud data, where no longer, like I said, is everything in your room, in one environment. It's now shifted up into the cloud, being stored in multiple locations by multiple different devices, and accessed by a whole multitude of people as well. Where that comes into play for us sometimes is the accessibility, the availability of that information, and how quickly we can feed that into our tools. So you can see some of the complexities already as we start our conversation. These are just some, quick examples of data that we come across. And I will say that, just in terms of IoT devices, Internet of Things, the fact that nearly 23 devices can be found in the common household right now, here in the United States, is pretty surreal. I mean, even myself, I wear the Oura Ring. I have watch that's smartwatch, phones. I have AI transcription devices, and I have, I'm not going to say it because it's right next to me, a digital assistant. If I say the name, it will trigger off a response. These are all things that are very much in our world, and we have to kind of know how to encounter it, but from a standpoint of being able to properly collect it, in terms of handling it, preserving integrity, being able to subsequently examine it. These are all things that when I'm having to start thinking about a case, I'm thinking ahead already about what tools, what's my workflow going to be to make sure I can get this done the best way possible. And that could be the quickest way, that could be, especially with ephemeral messaging and ephemeral data, which can disappear after a period of time. But also from a cost perspective, everybody's cost conscientious. We want to make sure that that's addressed as well in our process, but also compatibility, because we want to make sure that we can use this data at some stage down the road, and I can get involved at the collection stage. I can get involved, after data has been collected. We just want to know how we can encounter data, be able to address it, and then be able to even examine it. So collect it, examine it, etc. So modern investigators, there's kind of no limit to what we encounter, where I would normally say to you that, I can pretty much tell what data sources I'm going to be requested to kind of address in a new matter. That may be somewhat very difficult if I'm dealing with a proprietary industry, such as like a manufacturing plant or an industry that has very unique purpose. So it could be construction, it could be design, things that require extensive software and or knowledge of how information is generated and how it can be exported and how it can be kind of looked at from a metadata standpoint, looking at the data about data, things like that. These are all things that start crossing my mind about the different types of cases that can come about right now and how we're going to be able to pivot in the appropriate manner to do this in the best way possible for our clients. So you start seeing, and there's been a lot of talk on mobile devices, for example, as of late. Mobile devices have local storage in the range of 1 terabyte. You have end-to-end encryption, not only on your chat applications right now, but you also have ephemeral messaging and ephemeral data as we're starting to see this pop up more and more, and even governments are addressing these concerns. It's becoming a very big issue. And then, like we said, the big elephant in the room now is data in the cloud, which is really the standpoint of the data in the cloud is for the efficiency of storing information locally. You don't want to overwhelm your local device, so you push data up to the cloud, and depending on how much data is out there, it may be very difficult long term to pull it down and or nearly impossible depending on what people have as their default storage settings. For example, Apple iCloud only gives the standard amount of 5 GB when you sign up for an iCloud account. So just something to take note of as we navigate these particular data sources. Uh, we must understand also what data is available, right? We need to know what we're able to pull down, how we're able to pull that down, and how it can be forensically collected and examined. If you don't know that, you're not going to know what's going to be needed to pivot accordingly as you go down the process of, understanding the scope and starting to execute a game plan. So there is a evolution of digital forensic tools as a result of these data sources, and as a result of being able to see, email be replaced by document management systems and Microsoft Teams and things like that. We started to really see a need to shift gears a little bit and look at tools not only just for assisting with the baseline types of sources, the email, the mobile phones, the computer collections, to now going into more specific collections, even addressing cloud data storage and things like that, but being able to take even a step further and look at, now we have these mobile devices. The proliferation of mobile devices has now allowed us to get a little bit more granular in terms of what information is accessible to us on those devices. So as the technology is developing from, the vendor perspective, from the manufacturer perspective, on these devices itself, the forensic vendors, the forensic community has to adjust accordingly to see what are the capabilities today. So we have different levels of hardware and software that can be developed for these new devices, this new technology, this new media, things like that, that can accommodate certain requests or requirements as per the nature of the scope of the work that we've been hired to do, or that we need to do as investigators as part of our investigation. We have the ability to perform remote collections and even do that now for cell phones in a targeted way where we're able to just grab and preserve, collect text messages between, for example, Mike Graziano and Rob Fried, and be able to look at it from, let's say, March 16th through March 18th. And that's the only information that gets ported back to an examiner. That's how great the diversification is. We have full file systems, which will get you virtually everything off of the device to the extent that is possible. And then you have other types of tools that can get you just a very small snippet, a small segment of information, subset of information from the device. So this is a lot different than the mentality of grabbing everything, right? That was the way that forensics has been kind of projected even since my beginning days, of saying, hey, if you're able to get the collection, get it full because we have a forensic image. And now even tools are able to get into iCloud, Google Drive, OneDrive, and we're able to collect from backup services as well. Now, keep in mind that, these abilities to collect different levels has to be something that is strategically kind of talked about with clients, with your, whoever you're collecting on behalf of, because you lose context sometimes if you don't collect, more than one text platform. How many of us actually use a multitude of chatting apps, to communicate? I do. I use WhatsApp, I use Signal, I use Telegram, I use a number of them. And so if you're trying to look at my communications with, let's say, Mike Graziano, uh, we may be on WhatsApp or we may be on Signal, throughout the day, and it's hard to figure out the timeline of those types of chats if you're just collecting WhatsApp. You're going to miss all that Signal data. So the tools also give us the ability to export certain formats and do specific tasks that some particular tools may not be able to do over another. So, for example, reporting and export formats may vary. If I'm using Cellebrite, that may be a different format than able to be produced out of XRY or another tool, Oxygen Forensics. There are also tools that give us portable case files. For example, Axiom Cyber or Axiom Examine gives us the ability to provide reporting to clients in a way that they can look at computer data in a nice environment where they can see things natively and be able to walk the data a little bit, walk the evidence. Where if I do that within, let's say, FTK Imager, that's a more, broad, very skeleton-like, walk the folder path of a particular data volume or data set, but not really be able to run searches or anything else within that. It's also the type of exports that are possible in terms of spreadsheets, PDF files. There's a format now called Relativity Short Message Format, which is an RSMF file that allows us to take text-based data from cell phones and put that into a doc review platform for lawyers to go through. Again, this is all kind of how you want to see the data down the road and what specific tasks need to be done. That's how you're choosing which tools you want to work with. It's really, really important to use a diversified toolkit when you're working on a case that's going to court because you're going to be able to see things with a different set of lenses, right? That's how I explain it to people all the time. Same data, same purpose, same function, being able to look at that data, but some tools do better than others. For Mac-based investigations, I'm going to use a Mac-based tool. For Windows-based examinations, I'm going to use another tool that is best suited for Windows-based collections. So this way, I'm able to extract all the information that's required of me or that's possible, and also deal with it with the interface that allows me to look at metadata and look at the data that's most relevant for that type of operating system, that type of file system, so that I can accurately report on findings. There are commercial tools and there are forensic tools. When necessary, I may pivot to an innovative solution that my team may be able to custom build to be able to collect and cull down information. But there are a number of very good commercial tools that are more convenient and cost effective than forensic tools that may cost tens of thousands of dollars. I can tell you that there are tools that have cost $40 that you tack on the word e-discovery or forensics to it and does almost the same thing, and they've quadrupled in price. But they have a purpose, right? The purpose is when you have the word forensics involved, you know that there's data integrity, there's authenticity, there's admissibility in court. It just, screams legal, something that needs to be done or used for legal purposes, right? Somebody's got to speak to something down the road. And there's also a preference for training and being able to look at things from a standpoint of, can I get certified in this? Can I show mastery or, knowledge in this particular tool that can be used down the road so that when people ask me my competency, not only what I did, but how I looked at the data, this can also be addressed pretty easily as well. Here's a toolkit that's pretty much a good reflection of what you may see when reaching out to a digital forensics provider. You can see here, and this is no, specific recommendation or whatnot. This is, however, one of the most screenshotted and documented slides I put up there just to show you the amount of kind of scrutiny that we do internally on being able to be ready for anything, right? As an examiner, I'm going to be asked to use my best judgment, what's going to be most efficient, what's going to allow me to present my evidence in a courtroom setting, or an easy way to do it for somebody who may need to navigate this either in a document review platform or more manually. I have to have those answers and that information readily available. So this is a matrix that, something that I put something similar together for my clients, for my team, so that we know here's plan A, then we're going to shift to plan B. And then if plan B doesn't work, then we've got to get creative and innovative, and we may need to engage our developer side of the house. And even if that's not possible, I may need to resort to manual documentation. I've been on many collections as recent as last year, where I've had to do manual camera, photos of devices because they don't support the app. There's so many apps that are coming out that you can expect the forensic tools to be able to stay at the same pace. It's always going to be a little bit different. We may be behind, we may be ahead in certain ways, but they're doing an awful lot of work to stay ahead. And I will tell you, every time a version, let's say, of your operating system changes on your phone, it's almost like $1 million+ of investment to get that phone to be supported in some of these forensic tools that are out there now. And that's no joke, that's extensive, and a matter of time is always at issue because you look at some of these cases with kidnappings and with people running and trying to flee different locations and how quick we can gather information. This is exceptionally important in today's investigations. But I really want to highlight how this chart is laid out. On the top is your data source that may be of relevance here. You've got cloud data, computers, email, websites, network data, right? And then mobile data. And here's a way that I would pivot in my head in terms of our workflows, how I would encounter those and what I would start thinking about right away. So these are not organized by anything other than alphabetized. So, there's no preference here that's reflected. I do have my go-to tools, but I also want to pivot as needed. And I will say that these tools, some of them are free, some of them cost tens of thousands of dollars. So when you look to do something forensically sound, know that the examiners or the people that you're hiring are using validated, verified processes with tools that have been industry accepted and carry a little bit of a price tag to them because you need proper training, you need to be properly guided. Strategic usage also is important here, but these are the tools to get us to that point where we need to be. And I will tell you from being in this industry as long as I have, I only had a handful of tools initially. This is a blessing, to have these many tools and these many providers It's not keeping the cost down, but again, it's giving you different lenses to be able to look at the same data and be able to say, definitively or with a high probability that the data that you're looking at, is so and so because I've looked at it in one tool, but then I went ahead and looked at it in another tool. And for some cases, I've looked at it in four tools, especially with USB devices that are connected. With all these tools that I'm showing, I don't want to make kind of make it seem like, these are all the tools that you need to get. You need to validate the tools that are important for your case, and that you're using on a day-to-day basis. What does that mean? I said it before. You're using defined kind of tests and things like that to evaluate and sample data and data sets that you're able to look at how the tool is able to ingest, how it's able to image, how it's able to examine a set of data so that what you're expecting it to do, it will do. You want to do this on sample data. You don't do this on evidence. You don't do this on actual evidence. This is not the goal. The goal is to get comfortable with the tool, take sample data, try it before you buy it. I recommend doing a proof of concept even on these tools. I do it all the time. You want me to buy a $10,000 tool? We got to do some testing for it. And also remember that just because your company has accepted it as a tool that we're going to use doesn't mean that the person who's going to be executing on it is going to be somebody who may not have to testify. Every person who's involved in the process of using a forensic tool or running a forensic procedure will possibly be called to testify at any point in their career. If I put this in somebody's hands after teaching them what to do, and that's only within the first month of them starting to work in the field, and they get called to testify, that's what we need to do. We need to prepare for at any time being able to have any of our tools be kind of questioned by either law firms, lawyers, or the courts. We have to be prepared for that, and we have to always know that's in the background. So having multiple tools in your toolkit allows for cross-validation, being able to see and with your own eyes that the tool that you use initially is producing similar results to another tool. Again, different lenses, same data, to be able to show the accuracy and to look at it in a more comprehensive way so that you're able to compare data and also be able to speak to it. Maybe one, like I said before, views MAC data better than another tool. What tool am I going to pivot to? But you know what? That tool that doesn't handle MAC data really well does a really nice job for court exhibits. I may need to pivot to that court exhibit tool because my client said to me right off the bat, this is going to be a jury trial. So you have to balance this opportunity to pick and choose what's going to be most effective. But just having one tool is not going to be the best situation at times because you may not be able to pivot the way that you need to based on the requirements of the scope of the work. So different lenses give you different perspective. They allow you to look at the data differently. They may allow you to export it or present it differently. And again, that presentation is key. How is your client, how is it going to be used against the defendant in a court or for reports? What are we trying to show here? So I wanted to wrap it up with that particular slide to really stress the importance of a diversified toolkit, but also the subsequent, work that needs to go into toolkits once you purchase it. My information's on the screen here, rfried at pageonelegal.com. Again, we have teams throughout the United States. situated to support this type of work, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn through this QR code here on the right side. We'll look at some of the uh, chat here. Okay. Yes, I did write 5 books in 4 years. So it's a nice way to give back to the community. But I wanted to take the opportunity to see if anybody has any questions.